Hi guys, it's me again, and it's about 7 in the
Hello.
morning, and I figured that I'd record a video before I go to bed. And today, the topic we're going to be talking about is mining canary problems in video games. Now, before I explain what the topic is and how it relates to games, I of course have to explain the metaphor. What is a mining canary? Well, back in the good days, back in the old days, whenever people used to have to work in mines, coal mines, etc., they would go down the mine and they would bring with them a canary or some form of bird. And this bird, they would have it in a little cage, and whenever the bird died or the bird started acting weird or crazy, they would know that because the bird's lungs are smaller, the poisonous gases below them would affect the bird negatively before they were able to be affected as humans, because they obviously, people have larger lungs than a bird does. So the bird dies, oh shit, I don't want to go down there. There's
True, he's talking about methane deposits.
poisonous gases. So, how does this relate to video games? Well, this is obviously a premonition. This is obviously an ominous sign. So, I think that mining canary problems in video games are whenever a specific change or a specific thing in a video game is basically a if you could distill all of the problems down to any one thing, it would probably be this one thing. And I think that the best way for me to do this is to use a couple of examples. Now, one example now, thankfully, is outdated, but the second example, unfortunately, is not. First example I'm going to use is the Diablo 4 change from making the leave instance timer 5 seconds instead of 3 seconds. They increased the timer because of some stupid reasoning, and I viewed this as a mining canary problem. This is a problem that indicates a key core massive disconnect between the developers and the players. And every once in a while, you'll see a developer make a change that is so out there, so outrageous, so ridiculous that it just kind of encapsulates the entire animosity that they might have with the community or the entire disconnect that they have with the community. And I'd actually be curious, guys, after I put this second example, if you have any examples like this in your own games, maybe examples that I haven't thought of. The second example is going to be in Dragonflight, World of Warcraft. And back in the beta, sorry, not the beta, the pre-expansion patch for the Drakthir, which are going to be the new race, they had a racial ability where they could fly around and effectively use dragon riding anywhere in the Eastern Kingdoms or anywhere in Kalimdor. And Blizzard thought, in all of their brilliance, they thought that they were going to nerf this and change it. That way, everybody didn't start rolling Drakthir to farm old world dungeons. I'm not kidding. That's actually what their logic was. And it is still nerfed to this day. It was an ability called Soar. And also, now with the new patch, it's been announced that, of course, they're actually going to be allowing everybody to use the dragon riding mounts in the old world. So not only is this change stupid fundamentally, but it's also been completely outdated. So it's one of the things where, and again, like as soon as the developer explains what their perspective is and why they think this is a problem, everybody that is watching and that actually plays the video game realizes that they don't. So this is a big problem, and I think that also it's one of the things where like there are sometimes whenever it will seemingly be like a very small change, like, oh, this is like not really a big deal, like why does this really matter? And it doesn't really matter, but I think in these mining canary type problems, it indicates a larger disconnect. So for example, if you're charting a course across the ocean, okay, and you're 1 degree off, by the time that you get to the other side of the ocean, you're going to be miles away from where you started, even if you were 1 degree on the other side. And I think this is kind of what happens, is that the development of games becomes so disconnected from the player base of games that changes are made and put into a game that I think doesn't really serve anybody, and goes to just show the player base that the developers don't really understand what the core gameplay loop of the game really is. And I think a lot of these types of things happen, especially in live service games. And we're talking about, like, obviously, I use Diablo 4 and World of Warcraft.
I think in Diablo 4 and World of Warcraft, like thinking logically, they have probably multiple teams working on the game. And I think that this specific problem Asmongold is talking about may be an effect of the teams just not communicating very well with each other. Like, who thought that making that change from 3 to 5 seconds was a good idea? Like, thinking about the corporate structure, I don't believe that that was a single person decision. Like, it had to be a team, either higher up or lower. Like, it couldn't have been a single person who thought that they're going to implement this.
As an example, but Destiny, PUBG, Fortnite, Valorant, League of Legends, any of these games are all live service games. I think that they become more evident, and the problem really with these live service games and why they have more of these mining canary problems and why it's more common for them to happen is because I do think in live service games there is a different standard of success whenever you're talking about these types of games, because these games are not necessarily measured in terms of did the player complete the game. They're measured in how many hours did the player complete how many hours did it take for the player to complete the game, and also how many times did they spend money on the game, how long did they put into the game, how many hours. Blizzard calls it monthly active user player retention. Everything is all about keeping you on that hamster wheel as long as possible.
In Poland we have this saying that if you don't know what the deal is, what the problem is about, it's probably about money. So I agree with that point that Asmongold is making, that the final goal of Blizzard currently is to earn as much money as possible.
And that's why I think that you see a lot of these changes be put into these games that will artificially increase the amount of time that a game takes in order for it to be finished or for you to achieve a task.
Yeah, because if you play more, if you spend more time in the game, you're more likely to buy something.
And I think that you can contrast this with something like Elden Ring, for example. Elden Ring, there are rare items in Elden Ring. However, a rare item in Elden Ring is not equivalent to a rare item in many, many other games. And not to mention the fact that you can just mod the game and give yourself any item you want, not to mention items that don't even exist, like with mods, like Convergence, etc. The point is that it is not important for the developers of that game, or Tears of the Kingdom for that matter, it is not important for them to make you waste your time, because they've already got your fucking money, number one. So if you play through the game and you beat the game, this doesn't mean that you are no longer interfacing with their battle pass system.
The same could be said with Diablo 4, but the difference between Diablo 4 and Diablo Immortal is they got your money already in Diablo 4, so they're not as egregious with the pay to win as they were in Diablo Immortal. Like, you could argue that in Diablo 4 you can pay to win with the battle pass because you get Smoldering Ashes quicker in the seasonal battle pass. So if you're leveling up faster, you can have more passive bonuses, which are really minor. So, but it is some amount of power which you can have earlier if you use real money.
You're no longer interfacing with their store system, and this creates a profit incentive for developers to make things take longer than usual, and it also creates a profit incentive for developers to make things be more frustrating and just in general more difficult to achieve. And I guess these are all other effectively ways of saying take longer to achieve. So I think that really you see a lot of these mining canary problems with live service games, and I think that's really the reason, is that there is a success metric that is attached to a lot of live service games, especially that are done by larger companies, that is primarily focused around playtime, and it is primarily focused around a metric that is a quantitative value, which is a lot of times kind of a problem, because I think quantitative analysis of games is of course very important, and it should be a foundation for making decisions, but with without having the creative intuition to understand